I could see your screen, and if you go to PowerPoint slide, we could see the bigger version.
Okay. All right.
Perfect.
Now we ready? Sorry.
I actually see the other screen. Do you want to switch over?
Oh.
There we go. I do see a full screen. Is that you?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect.
Cool.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're fine. Once again, here's Deb.
Okay. So we're going to get started. Sorry about my technical ineptness, but we're going to talk about the Get With the Guidelines AFib exchange today. So the agenda for today is I want to talk a little bit about day-to-days and why we do those. Go through a little bit of atrial fib incidence and prevalence. I found some new slides that look really good. Talk a little bit about the achievement measures, some educational opportunities and resources, and then if we have time at the end, I'll talk a little bit about manuscripts that we have available. So first of all, for day-to-days, an overview of why we do day-to-days. We do this quarterly. We send you the day-to-day AFib report that you should have gotten within the last week or so that's specific to your hospital. And we tie that to our quality exchange call because we want to try to identify measures that fall out the most, maybe discuss a little bit with the group about how you have addressed some of the issues that you've come across, share experiences, exchange ideas, and be thinking about what you want to learn today and or discuss on this call or any other call. And because we're really here, we really just want to facilitate this exchange so that we can offer, so that we can share best practices and just talk about things that are working for you. So first of all, some AFib stats. There are as many as 6.1 million people in the United States that have AFib. With the aging U.S. population, we're expected to double this by 2030. So, like 12.2 million people, that's a lot of people. More than 750,000 hospitalizations occur each year because of AFib, and it contributes to 130,000 deaths each year. The death rate from AFib as the primary or a contributing cause has been rising a lot over the last 2 decades. AFib costs the United States about $26 billion each year, and each hospitalized AFib patient costs an extra $8,705. So it's a pretty expensive thing. And please feel free at any time to stop me. If you have questions, type them in the chat box or just take yourself off mute and interrupt me, and I'm happy to answer questions or whatever. So atrial fib, why now? Well, it's the most common type of sustained or clinically significant arrhythmia. Incidence and prevalence is expected to climb as we continue to age our U.S. population. The mortality rate as either primary or the underlying cause of death has been increasing for more than 2 decades. So it doesn't seem like we're making a lot of progress on this at this time. Hospital admissions are caused by atrial fib have increased by more than 60% in the last 20 years. So that's a lot, over half. And then atrial fib now represents one of the leading causes of hospitalization. So these are heart disease and stroke statistics. The 2017 update, I found a little bit of information on the update related to atrial fib. And it's just this, the first graph is just showing you how fast it's growing, the prevalence of projections for AFib. So there it's just illustrating 2015, it's just over 6.1 million and expected to go up to 12.1 million. And then the second graph is showing you the cumulative incidence of events in the 5-year after diagnosis of AFib in Medicare patients. So within 5 years, there's a pretty strong or a pretty high percentage of these patients will have events. And then there's heart failure. So AFib and heart failure are related. And that brown graph there kind of shows you how that is increasing over the next 5 years as you continue after you have been initially diagnosed. MI is the green on the bottom, and then stroke is the purple line there in the middle, and then GI bleeding. That was one I was really kind of surprised about. I did not realize the incidence of GI bleeding that's associated with AFib. I was very surprised about that one. So AFib and implications for stroke risk. AFib causes 15% of the 700,000 strokes per year in the United States. And when you think about cryptogenic strokes and how many additional that have not really been, may not have been identified. So it's really higher than 15%. It's probably closer to 20 or 25%. The risk of stroke, if untreated, is 3 to 12% per year. So if the patient's AFib is not treated, then they increase every year 3 to 12% chance of having a stroke. The annual cost for stroke itself is $57.9 billion, and stroke from AFib has a higher severity, disability, and mortality. As many of you probably know, with stroke, with the AFib, it's often going to be like a showering of thoughts. So it affects a larger area of the brain, can affect several areas of the brain, and like it says here, it has higher severity and disability. And therapies can prevent stroke in AFib. So there are therapies available, medications, things that we can do, the ablations, and those things that can help to prevent stroke. So I think we're seeing more and more interest, I guess, in atrial fib because of the growing incidence and prevalence of it. So recently, actually it was June 12th of 2018, the American Heart Association announced research grants that total more than $28 million to scientific teams that are going to create new research networks that focuses on the understanding the causes of atrial fib. The new knowledge that they will discover will provide a basis to generate more effective ways to treat and to prevent the disease. And it's an effort to understand, their research is an effort to understand more about what are the causes and how can we improve outcomes for our aids. So the new knowledge discovered through this network will provide the basis of generating more effective ways. So it's really kind of exciting. That's a lot of money to be putting towards grants. And the 6 institutes that the research network currently is the Cleveland Clinic, University of Utah, Stanford University, Boston University, Northwestern University, and Vanderbilt. If you want, once you get these slides, if you want to see more about that, if you select that link or click on the link or copy and paste it into your web browser, then there'll be more of a breakdown as far as where the money came from and where and who it's going to. So, but the total is $28 million. So next I'm going to transition to the Get With the Guidelines AFib and achievement measures. But before I do, does anybody have any questions or comments about the incidence and prevalence of AFib currently? You can star 6 to unmute or type in the chat box and Michelle will let me know. Okay, so moving on, AFib achievement measures. So first of all, with Get With the Guidelines, I just wanted to quickly, I've gotten a few questions about the entry criteria and also the ICD-10 codes that are associated with the Get With the Guidelines requirements for entering into, entering the patients, the atrial fib patients. So the entry criteria is the final clinical diagnosis of AFib or a flutter. It can be the principal or the secondary, who are 18 years of age or older, can be entered into the Get With the Guidelines AFib. The patients may include patients admitted to your hospital as an inpatient, but an optional one would be patients evaluated, treated, and discharged from your hospital ED or from an observation unit. And then the other thing is we now have the extra layer for the ablation so that those patients can be followed as well. The applicable ICD-10 codes are listed here, and they'll be available for you in the slides when we send those to you. So what are the actual achievement measures? So these are all evidence-based. It's from the recommendations that were published a few years ago. The first one actually, and they were just updated this last year, 2018. There was a period between 2017, 2018 that you could use the previous achievement measures, and then they were revised. And now this year, these are the achievement measures that we will be following for the Get With the Guidelines Award. So the first one is the ACE1 ARB or ARNI prescribed prior to discharge when the ejection fraction is less than 40. Second one is beta blocker prescribed, and I see I have a typo, prior to discharge, and that again is when the left ventricular ejection fraction is less than 40. The CHADS-2 VAS scores documented prior to discharge, and you used to be able to document like the symptoms and answer the questions. However, now there has to be an actual number documented by the physician. The FDA-approved anticoagulant prescribed prior to discharge, and there's quite a few patients, actually, when you look at the research, that do not have this anticoagulant prescribed. So it increases their risk of stroke quite a bit. PT-INR plan follow-up documented prior to discharge for the warfarin treatment, and then the statin at discharge in AFib patients with CAD, CVA, TIA, PDD, or diabetes. So these are the measures. When we sent you your report this last week, these are the measures that we're looking at. So I took a look at all of the patients that we have within Get With the Guidelines right now, all hospitals, for the last 3 quarters, because I wanted you to be able to compare where your hospital sits with the nation. So first of all, with the ACE, ARB, and ARNI, all hospitals are at 84.2%, just under that 85% performance achievement goal. So there's another quarter yet for them and anybody else to catch up. Second one is the beta blockers is at 95.4%, and that seems not only nationwide but also within our affiliate, the Southwest affiliate, so including all of you who currently participate in Get With the Guidelines from our affiliate, are pretty compliant with that actual measure. The next one is the CHADS-2 VAS score. It's at 75.2% nationwide. And actually, between last quarter, first quarter, second quarter, and this quarter, I think I'm seeing a lot of improvement within our own affiliate. So as I'm talking about these things, I hope that you guys are thinking of things that you can help to share. You know, what have you done to help improve these things? Do you have questions? Do you have suggestions? Or, you know, just what do you think about that? Next one is the FDA-approved anticoagulation prescribed prior to discharge at all hospitals, which is at 98.9%. And that actually is pretty compliant with where we are currently, and in the Southwest affiliate as well. The PT-INR plan follow-up documented prior to discharge for warfarin treatments at 85.8%, barely over it. That seems to be one that we have a little bit more problem with as well within our affiliate. But the one that seems to be the highest non-compliant is the statin at discharge in AFib, not only nationwide, but within our own system, the Southwest affiliate. So I was just wondering, sorry about that, if anybody wanted to share anything that you're doing currently or ideas or thoughts related to that statin at discharge, because I think it's one of those things that everybody's having problems with. So anything that you try to do to work on that particular measure, any process improvements that you could share with our group, *6 to unmute and to just share a little bit of that information would be great. Or any of the other measures, actually. are there things we've seen, like I said, a lot of improvement of the CHADS-2 VAS score. So exactly, what did you do to improve that? Can you share that with your colleagues? Has anybody done any process improvement that they can share? *6 to unmute, or please type in any questions you may have to Michelle. All right, we have a quiet group. So next I will talk a little bit about educational opportunities and resources that are available for us. So the first thing I want to talk about is our scientific sessions for 2018. Actually, it's coming up really quick, November 10th through 12th. It's in Chicago. If anybody is planning on attending that's on this call, then please let your QSI director know that you're planning on attending this. They are going to have a reception and a poster recognition networking event on the night before the conference starts from 5:30 to 7:30 at that hotel in Chicago. So we're encouraging people to submit some of your process improvement or things that you've done or that you've used. And actually, this is with any of the programs, whether any of them but stroke, whether it be AFib, resuscitation, heart failure, CAD, the CAD programs, anything. We're encouraging people to share their experiences and their processes of improvement. For this particular poster presentation, unlike the ISC, where it's pretty rigorous and scientific and it has to go through a rigorous process of review, for these particular posters, what we're looking for is just a brief summary. It should be hospital level, get with the guidelines information that you're able to pull out, and then what have you done as a result of that? What kind of improvements have you made? Actually, the deadline for submission of the posters is tomorrow. So there's not a lot of time to do it, but there is 24 hours, and it's just a short little, the poster presentation information tells you there, right on this poster, on what kind of things that you need. But it's mostly, Mission Lifeline, get with the guidelines, hospital accreditation, any of those things that you would like to share information about how great your hospital is and how things have changed. So if you're interested in doing that, then please just write. It's just a short little abstract. There's not a scientific review. There's not a submission process, but just writing up a little bit of abstract as far as what you would like to show. The specifications are listed here. But if you just type in the sessions, scientific or AHA scientific sessions, then you can find this information on that website so that you can look at it now. So if there's something that you've done that you're proud of, that you think your colleagues would enjoy, then please consider writing that up and submitting it. The next resource is there's the cryptogenic stroke. So AFib can lead to stroke, and the diagnosis can lead to prevention. So, we know that, and we have a pretty robust website and webinar series that you can watch and actually obtain CEUs on cryptogenic stroke. We know that not all cryptogenic strokes are related to AFib, but believe that quite a few of them could be. The biggest issue, as you probably know, is just being able to capture the AFib. So if people are going in and out of AFib and they're in the hospital during that 24, 48, 72 hours, whatever it is that they're in the hospital, may not show up during the monitor. So some use the Holter monitors, use the event monitors. There's the implantable monitors now that people can use for the longer term, looking for AFib for patients that are going in and out of it that has been undetected previously. So there's a lot of information. There's tools. There's resources. There's tools for diagnosing and treatment for the professionals, the healthcare professionals. There's also some patient education resources at this website. And then there's partner activation toolkit and how can you get involved with that. So just a lot of information if you're interested in getting CEUs, understanding more about cryptogenic stroke. then and how it relates to AFib, then feel free to look into that. And if you're needing credit, it's free CEU. The other thing that's available that I'm not sure a lot of people know about is we have grand rounds. It's a CME CE, and actually you just go in and you request that you have this presentation delivered. It's on site by an American Heart Association expert, and it's for hospital grand rounds, and they'll go nationwide. So if anybody's interested in obtaining more information, having a hospital grand round, having a speaker from the American Heart Association expert, not necessarily, it could be our volunteers, our physicians, the cardiologists, whoever that would provide this education. But it is there, it is available, it's a spotlight series, and all you have to do is go in and request it, and there's no cost to you. So it's other than finding a room for it. Any questions, comments about any of the education? And this is just a few things. Oh, go ahead.
We have a question from Sarah. Sarah says, what are some steps have you heard of for talking with hospitals about improving statin at discharge?
I think some of the things that maybe people could consider or look at is maybe like a checklist, a discharge checklist, to make sure that, maybe if there's a case manager that they could go through and look and make sure that statin is ordered at discharge. Or sometimes they'll have like a charge nurse go in and go through the checklist, make sure that everything is covered and that they do have that statin prescribed. Some people have the order sets. They may have order sets that they have available, and that they have just boxes of the different statins that somebody can just check. And actually, if you have that available and the physician maybe would cross through it saying, more or less, no, I don't want this, just cross through it, then that does indicate, or that is an acceptable reason to be refused. So those are some of the main ones that I'm aware of. Is there anything that anybody else has tried or done for that? *6 to unmute or type it in, please. Nothing? Okay. So next, I'm just going to talk about a few important dates that will be coming up. January 14th, the week of January 14th will be when we do our data days again, when we will be sending out your reports. And as you know, our reports are it's a year-end snapshot, or each quarter is just a snapshot of what we have on that particular day. It's usually the first of the month following the quarter, so that we can get you a snapshot of where you currently are with the guidelines data, and how we can, if there's ways that we can help you, or just ideas that you can look at within your own systems as far as how you can get up to a ward level. We are available for one-on-one consultation. All of the QSI directors that are in your area are available to help you one-on-one. And it's free consultation. So if you're interested in any of that, then follow up with your QSI director. Then following that, usually about 2 weeks later, we'll have our January 30th, we'll have our next AFib quality exchange call. And again, I really encourage you, if you have things that you have questions about, or, you're just kind of shy and you don't really want to talk about it, maybe you can send the questions ahead of time and we can address them, make sure that we get them addressed during our exchange call. On February 28th, the quarter 4 Q data is due to be extracted and to get with the guidelines. So you should have everything abstracted by the 28th or the 1st of March. And that will give you time then to take a look at your quarter 4 data, make sure that you didn't miss anything, that maybe something was abstracted incorrectly, that you can overturn because, maybe somebody just missed some of the documentation. So you can drill down and find your follow-ups, just like we send you. We'll send you those when we do our data days. But you can drill down anytime. And if you don't know how, then please reach out to your QSI director. They are more than happy to help you to drill down to find out exactly why or which patient fell out, and so that you can go back and follow up and take a look at that. On March 29th of 2019 will be the final day to change any of your 2018 data, because at that point, then the information will all be pulled, and for all of the hospitals that are in Get With The Guidelines, and will be sent to the National Center to verify. We'll have to verify all of the awards, make sure that anybody who achieves the awards are recognized for that and receive those awards. April 5 and 6 of 2019 is QCore. That is another AHA venue for education, especially for all of the other modules other than stroke. It's held every year at the Ritz-Carlton in Pentagon City in Washington, D.C., and it's going to be the new venue for AFib recognition event. So, and actually, it's going to be the new venue for a recognition event for all of the modules other than stroke, because stroke, we do that at the International Stroke Conference. But there's going to be a more focus on Get With The Guidelines. There's going to be a Get With The Guidelines track. So, and I don't think that conference is as costly as some of the other ones. So if you're interested in doing that, then, take a look at QCore. We'd really encourage you to attend if possible, and especially if you're at recognition level. In May, the recognition awards are approved, and they will be distributed to all of the hospitals. And then May 29th is when Q1 data is due to be abstracted and Get With The Guidelines. And actually, that's just an arbitrary date, but it's within 60 days of the end of the quarter. In July, we have the U.S. News and World Report ad that includes all the gold and silver recognized hospitals for all of the different modules. And those are currently available. We did recently receive the little flyer ads, the paper copies. So if anybody is interested in getting some of those copies for your hospital to share with your administration, share with your staff, whatever, then please reach out to your director. We do have those available for you now. And then August 29th is the Q2 data is due to be abstracted and Get With The Guidelines. And again, we do the data days earlier than that. So, we recognize that most of your quarterly data is not going to be in there at the time, but at least you can have a snapshot to know what things are falling out, what things you may want to develop a process improvement with your staff or with other people, and just to kind of to help get you to the award level so that you can be recognized, because there are not a lot of recognized hospitals for atrial fib in the United States, and so you could be the first in your area to be recognized, and we are here to help you to achieve that. So this is the intro of the AFib infographic, but the Get With The Guidelines, it helps save lives because you use Get With The Guidelines, which are evidence-based. They're saving costs and they're saving lives. It's helping hospitals to hold themselves to the highest or the latest scientific guidelines, and it's changing the landscape in 5 main ways. First one is the PMT tool, real-time data collection. It can show you how your hospital is adhering to the guideline measures. There's point-of-care education materials that you can print out of your Get With The Guidelines to give to your patients, and then, of course, document for when and if you're surveyed, whether it be the normal survey, D&D, Joint Commission, or a disease-specific one. There's integrated decision support, and then the arrival, discharge, and follow-up care forms. So the newest things are the 180-day follow-up form post-ablation. So that's something that you can now put into Get With The Guidelines. You can monitor. It will help remind you when your time is up to call them, those kind of things. Number 2, you have the field staff support I just talked about. You have one-on-one interaction. There's PMT support if you have questions, coding questions, just don't quite understand. Maybe one of the patients may present differently and you're not sure how to code that or how to enter that into your PMT. Then give your quality director a call and they will help you. And it also just helps to increase your performance. so that, again, patients are getting the best evidence-based care that they can get. There's the recognition. There's public recognition that the hospitals achieve 85% of compliance or higher in all of those achievement measures that we just reviewed and the ones that we actually send to you in your day-to-day report. The bronze level, to obtain bronze level, it's 90 days of 85% or higher of all of the measures. For the silver, it's 12 consecutive months of 85% or higher of all of those achievement measures. And then the gold has 2 years. So that's 24 consecutive months, 85% or higher. And that's an aggregate number. So month to month, if you have a bad month, where you have quite a few fallouts, but the next month you have a really good, result in compliance, then in the aggregate, you still can achieve it. If one month is not going to hurt you, is what I'm trying to say. And these are also featured in that U.S. World and News report for best hospitals, the recognition ad. It's cost effective. It's inexpensive to enroll. And there are available discounts if you're using multiple Get With the Guidelines modules. Some hospitals use stroke, they use heart failure. And then if you include AFib, there's now an uploader, I guess. So if you use stroke and if you use the heart failure, then there is a way that you can automatically transfer that data into the AFib module. So if you're wanting more information on that, then please reach out again to your Quality Systems Improvement Director, and they will be happy to help you obtain more information on that. And then education. There's the webinar access, the ones that we just talked about, and there's other ones too that are available that have been pre-recorded on our QSI website, heart.org, QSI.com, I think it is. I have it on the end anyway. If you go to that website, then there's a lot, the exchange information that we've had previously, that information is there, the recordings, and there's also other webinars. There's local workshops, and then again, there's patient education resources that are available. If you just go to the the AFib, Get With the Guidelines AFib website, there's a lot of links, a lot of information that you can download. New information is always coming out. And so take time, if you can take some time to take a look at some of those resources that might be helpful for your program. But I want to stop right here for just a minute and see if there are any questions or comments. *6 to unmute your line or type in for Michelle.
No questions yet, Deb, but you're doing a great time explaining everything to us.
Great, thank you. So the last portion here, I'm just going to go over some of the supporting manuscripts that have recently been published. So the first one is the Get With the Guidelines AFib. It's a novel quality improvement registry for hospitalized patients with atrial fib. This is a national hospital-based AFib quality improvement program, and it's designed to increase adherence to evidence-based guidelines for AFib. And Dr. Lewis and all have published this article, and that can be, the source is down at the bottom here if you are interested in reading more or checking more into that. Then there was an abstract submitted. There's an abstract submitted, Improvement in Quality of Care for Atrial Fib and Get With the Guidelines Atrial Fib, that was published, or that was presented in 2018 at one of the conferences, and it's Dr. Fassini and all. So it just shows you here that among hospitals participating in the AFib module that used to stroke prevention therapy at discharge in eligible guideline-indicated patients was high, and it improved over time. So more or less just watching, seeing what you're doing, sharing it with your colleagues, sharing it with your administration, your physicians, your EP physicians, cardiologists, and just show them how by utilizing these guidelines and following through with the evidence-based medicine, how it improves over time. The rate of oral anticoagulation at this hospital in discharge and eligible patients with the CHADS-VASc CHAS-2-VAS score of 2 or greater went up to 95.6% for the last quarter of enrollment for this particular hospital. So, again, monitoring these things and putting some resources to it, whether it be through a committee meeting, meeting with a physician, meeting with a certain department that these patients are hospitalized in, it can help to improve them. There's improvement in use of anticoagulation therapy in patients with ischemic stroke. Results with the guideline stroke. Again, this was published in October of 2011. The reference is down here. But in this particular study, there was almost 1.2 million patients with stroke or TIA from 1,361 participating hospitals were admitted into fully participating Get With the Guidelines stroke hospitals between April 1 of 2003 and April 1 of 2010. So this is showing you what you can do. I mean, you can look at these things with your own hospital and look at the trends over time to see how you've improved, and then write abstracts about what did you do, how did you do that, how did you get to that, what were the outcomes, what did you put into place to improve it, and just sharing with your colleagues so we can continue to improve care for these patients. 81.3% were determined to be ischemic in nature. And then atrial fib was present in 20.5% of these patients. Continuing on, the study concludes that use of anticoagulation among stroke patients with AFib has increased to a very high level overall in Get With the Guidelines over time. So what it's saying is hospitals that participate in Get With the Guidelines look at their data, share the information, actually do improve the use of the anticoagulation, which in turn helps to prevent stroke or other complications for our AFib patients. AFib and implications for stroke risk. There's an article or a research project that was looked at causes and predictors of 30-day readmission in atrial fib patients, and it was from a nationwide readmission database. This was published in the Journal of Cardiology, and 15% of the patients who were admitted with AFib were admitted within 30 days, or readmitted within 30 days, which more than a third of these readmissions were for AFib or for heart failure. So a lot of the AFib patients will develop heart failure. And in conclusion, AFib increased the 90-day readmission for patients with heart failure, and ablation for AFib in patients for heart failure was associated with reduced frequency, length of stay, and increase in complication rate. So it's showing you, that they're not going to be readmitted so much, so it's going to be a cost savings for the hospital. There's not going to be penalties associated with the readmission, and so it's a good article to take a look at and see if you can glean any ideas from. The new onset atrial fib predicts heart failure progression was published in 2014 in the American Journal of Medicine, and the results of that particular research project was 40% of the patients with AFib developed heart failure and vice versa. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good percentage of patients. And then the new onset atrial fib and heart failure patients has been associated with increased mortality. So again, if you're using heart failure, Get With the Guidelines heart failure, and you want to implement the AFib as well, a lot of the information that is common to both of those patients can just be auto-populated into the atrial fib module. And then heart failure patients, new onset atrial fib is a predictor of and trigger for clinical heart failure. So again, some really interesting research articles, things that we can do to help prevent future issues with our heart failure and AFib patients. And then there's the PROSPER study. It was a real-world effectiveness of warfarin among ischemic stroke patients with atrial fib. It was an observational analysis. And the conclusion for that was among ischemic stroke patients with atrial fib, warfarin treatment was associated with improved long-term clinical outcomes and more data at home. So again, it's showing us the importance of making sure that our patients are getting the evidence-based care. Those achievement awards or performance measures, achievement measures are really very important, and it shows you how you can help your patients. The outcomes of Medicare beneficiaries with heart failure and atrial fib. Again, this was a 2014 publication, and the results for both pre-existing and new onset atrial fib are associated with greater long-term mortality among older patients with heart failure. And pre-existing atrial fib was associated with a greater risk of readmission. So again, if we can take care of these things, get them on the right medications, make sure we're following the evidence-based medicine, we can help to decrease readmission, which in turn will decrease penalties for hospitals in the future, and also just the readmission and the cost of the patient to the patients and their families and the healthcare system. So are you tracking these measures that could improve atrial fib treatment and lower stroke risk? So the three main performance measures that are backed by science that are used to develop the AFib guidelines, and these are appropriate for public reporting or for pay-for-performance. So, putting your results on your hospital website, just showing them how you are improving the treatment. They include the CHADS-2 VAS score that's documented prior to discharge. If the patient is discharged on anticoagulation, or the PT-INR planned follow-up is documented prior to discharge for those patients taking Coumadin. Optimal treatment of AFib reduces the risk of hospitalization. AFib is common in heart failure, MI patients, pneumonia patients, CABG patients, PCI patients, and AFib independently increases risk of hospitalization of all of these conditions. So suboptimal management of AFib will increase readmission and penalty from CMS. I hope these are helpful for you all. If there's any questions, I will take them now. And if you have questions in the future, you can always check out the resources at heart.org/Southwest or SWA quality. So check out that website. There's tons of resources, not only for AFib, but for everything else. And you can always reach out to me at heart.org. So that's all that I have to present. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, ideas that they would like to discuss? Nothing? Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed the conference or the webinar. And Michelle, do you have any closing comments?
I want to thank everyone for joining. Just a reminder, we will be sending the slides and a recording of this presentation to you within 1 week of this 1 week. Thank you so much for joining. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone.